So thank you very much for joining today. Yeah, so welcome to the Boston Power Talks. So today is Agile for All Day, and I'm Pepe Valiente. So I will be your host and presenter. And I would like to start this session with a question. So question number one is, do you like sushi? And I would like you to reply on the chat so I can read you. Yes. Yeah, I'm hearing well, very good. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. And I asked you, depends on what, Carlos. I think everyone loves sushi. No, it is very open. So
I'm a chef, so it depends.
you got it. All right. So I started with this conversation because of three different topics. So topic number one, it is because there is a problem that it is around the seafood industry. So we have, well, 20% of the seafood samples in the world are mislabeled due to fraud or human error. So that means that probably 1/5 sushis that you have probably are not what it was originally asked. So probably instead of salmon, it was, I don't know, like a rainbow trout or something like that. So
what's going on?
What's that? Wow. Okay. All right. So back to normal. Everything okay?
Yes, all good.
All right. So we have a situation that it is important to everybody. And number two, it is well, talking about technology, we're trying to solve this situation through something that it is the blockchain. So companies like IBM are trying to resolve this kind of situation so we can understand what is the problem and try to fix it from all the supply chain. And that also connects with the previous conversation where Birch was talking about blockchain and was talking about Bitcoin. So that's why I got it into the equation. And number three is because we have many issues, right? We all have problems. We have a situation as all the companies, all the human beings. And it is important that we can, well, try to understand the problems before we get into the solutions. However, the world is moving so fast that nowadays it is very difficult, right? It's very difficult to move forward because there is a big uncertainty around the market, around, hey, am I doing the right thing? Are my customers going to accept what I'm proposing? Is it possible that I can do this? How the market will react? There are like many questions. So it is very difficult to move forward, and it is very difficult to accelerate in the same fashion as other companies or our company would like to go. So with that said, around this uncertainty, the best advice we can go is let's go one step at a time and let's try to move forward with what we know. And we all, let's say that all the companies in general, no matter what industry you are on, I'm sure that you have something very important. You have competitors, you have customers that you need to satisfy, and something is very important. So there is one thing that is very important, and that is speed. Oh, wait a second, not this speed. So sorry, Kino, this speed. So when we talk about speed, is about accelerating, delivering fast, delivering outcomes, delivering value. And here's where Agile can come into play. So I'm sure that you know this company. This company, PayPal, well, is very well known, but something that you may not know is how PayPal started and the market that they were planning to attend. So the first market that they were, the first customers, the first market they wanted to bring, or they wanted to onboard, was this company. And some of you may be too young for this, but this is something that is a Palm. It is a device, electronic device that is called a Palm. And they were set up as the very first client for PayPal. And time after, well, they realized that maybe this was not the real path that they wanted to follow. So ultimately they decided, no, we need to do something different. And they pivot from that. And they move into something that is more electronic, and there is also more in a platform. And there is where they start talking with eBay. And they start talking about, hey, I have a product that may be of your interest. And eBay said, yeah, that's interesting, but maybe yes, maybe no, we don't know. And then eBay started working on their own platform for electronic payments. So they start working on something that's called bill point. And time after, well, they realized that that was not where eBay wanted to go, and also killed that project. And then they start talking back to PayPal, and it was eBay acquired PayPal in 2002 for $1.5 billion. So what is the message here is, okay, sometimes the idea or our ideas on the market that we want to tackle are not what we end with at the end. And the other piece is, when we were talking about bill point, the only thing that could make or that could differentiate PayPal from what eBay was building through bill point was speed. And here again is where Agile can come into play. And we can understand agility in two different big components. And one is at the executive level. So that means that who is responsible for the direction on the business, who is responsible for the strategy and the long-term vision. Has a very direct impact on the business model, focus on results, and of course, it is their commitment, the ones that is needed to implement Agile. So the executive piece is where you can start seeing about, well, the lean startup and then the business model canvas, and try to understand and operate from a higher level where we want to bring this company. It is the one that will decide, hey, shall we continue with Palm or shall we move to something else? And that is precisely what this executive agility can help us with. On the other hand, in our companies, we have this operational agility, which is the one that is focusing on executing the strategy. It is responsible for the deliverables, the quality and the outcomes. It has an impact, on the business results, and as well focus on delivering projects, delivering initiatives, deliver. So this is the piece that I'm going to focus today. So we can try to talk a little bit more internally from our companies, our industries, what is important, and how can we start bringing that value faster, so we can get out, we can be out of trouble easily, or that if we need to pivot, if we need to change the direction, that we have a little bit of tools, so we can use, so we can accelerate that process. Agile is, well, you may hear it's a methodology, it is a framework. Yeah, it is a little bit of all that. But above all of it, it is a mindset. It is a behavior. And it's something that you can learn and foster on your day-to-day activities. And it is something that no matter the industry, it doesn't matter if you're in a software industry or not, that's something that you can embrace. Think about it as if you were Batman, right? It is that belt that can bring the right tool at the right moment. So it doesn't matter what is the situation, you always have a tool. So Agile can provide with that. It manages principles. So principle number one is clarity over the outcome. And what that means is that sometimes we don't know where, let's say, we don't know exactly what our customers want. We have a very good idea, and we may not know how to get there, but we will figure it out. So what it is important is to have a very good expectation on what is the final outcome on this. What is what my customer wants? Well, I see a poll here pop in. Okay, and that is the number one principle. The number two is iteration over perfection. So something that is important in Agile world is that we ship as fast as possible. And then we grow, or we continue building in aggregated fashion. So let's say that we ship something very basic, then we go with the stakeholders or the customers or the users and ask for feedback. And based on their feedback, we can understand if we are in the right direction, if we're not in the right direction. And if you remember, this combination of two principles, clarity on the outcome and iteration over perfection, can relate to that foggy image that I showed at the beginning, right? Where we don't know where we're going. Cool. But we know that we want to go into that direction, and we need to go step by step. And the number three principle is self-directed teams, which is where each team has the autonomy to decide where to go, how they want to work, how they want to manage the things, and have some level of autonomy on the decisions around how they want the projects to go. So three principles, many values. So I'm going to talk about the values in a second. And why it's important to have values? Well, because at the end we're human, and it is important that we have trust on each other, we trust on the team, that we have respect for each other, that we can be open and be available, that we can be that it can be possible for us to, you know, raise our hand, say, you know what, I disagree with that statement. I don't feel comfortable with this, and that you can provide your statement, that you can provide your opinion, and that kind of opinion can be heard. It requires also courage, because at the end, when you're in a group or a team, it is not that easy to you know, raise your hand and say, hey, I disagree with this, or why don't we implement this or that instead of this? Why don't we go into this channel instead of this other, and so on. So it requires courage to talk, and it also requires empathy. So Agile is something that it is also regulated by these values, and these values are embraced in a day-to-day activities. Agile practices, well, there are many practices around Agile. As you can see on the image, I'm not going to talk about them in detail. I can spend hours and hours talking about how do you implement a right stand-up, how do you work on a very meaningful retrospective, and so on. But Anita only gave me 30 minutes, so I'm just going to talk about some very specific stuff. And I hope that afterwards, this can open the conversation for a follow-up where, more than just scratching the surface on what is Agile and making this available to everybody, we can jump into a deep dive and try to get like a better understanding on the ceremonies and the practices. All right, so when we talk about projects or project management, it is very common that we talk about these three components: the time for delivery, the cost of the implementation, and as well as the quality. So I would like to hear from you guys. Is it easy to deliver projects with these three characteristics? Is it always easy to keep on track of the cost? Is it always deliver on time? Is it something that it's easy to do? What about the quality? Is that something that you need to sacrifice sometimes? I read you in the chat. How do you feel about these three constraints in project management? Never. Yeah, that's a very good statement. Anyone else? It's not easy. Correct. And ultimately, these three variables are very important, but in the way that we can control, or in the way that we can break it down into smaller pieces of work, we can control it better. Exactly, it's always varying. So we need to review the return of investment. We need to review what is the right metrics, right? So it's not always this three, but these are the three more common, and based on methodologies, what a lot of people cares. Correct. Okay, so what is what Agile is, or the Agile approach in here? So when we talk about project management, this is something that you may be familiar with. This is the Gantt chart, and traditionally, well, we break all the all the different activities and tasks. We define a critical path. We assign an owner. We assign resources if this is going to be something for well, for a short term, or it's going to be expensive, or what are the resources allocated to that specific. And then we play with this Gantt chart. What happens is that many of the times we need to spend a lot of time defining the requirements. So that happens at the very beginning. Then we spend some time on the daily activities trying to get this. And these projects, most of the time, are projects that delay more than 6, 8, 12 months, 18 months, and so on. So if we don't have a very good communication with our stakeholders, with our customers, there is a big percentage, or a big chance that we will deliver something that our customers are not wanting at the end. So how do we break that is where Agile can come into play. So again, waterfall approach, consistent in, well, these four phases. So let's say discovery, planification, building, and the review with the stakeholders. So at the end of this time frame, we will deliver something valuable to our customers, our users, and so on. What Agile is doing is breaking this into smaller pieces of time. So we call that iteration. And that is one of the very important principles. So iteration means a defined timeline that the team sets And it can be 1 week, it can be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and so on. The team has the autonomy to define how long the sprint is going to be. And during this time, the team will walk through the 4 phases on each of them. And what matters here is that at the end of the first iteration, yeah, we will do some discovery, some plan, review, build. And once we complete this in the time, let's say that we talk about 2 weeks sprint, we deliver some value. And when we deliver some value, we also open the possibility to our customers to give us feedback. And with that feedback, we move on. We continue working on the next iteration. We deliver something, we review that with the customers, we continue delivering, review something. So the feedback is something that is frequent. And when you review something frequently with your users, it is more difficult that you will build something that is wrong. And that is pretty much the idea of Agile in a nutshell. So how does it work on a daily basis, or how does it work internally? So, well, this is a cycle that the Agile teams use, and it starts with the product backlog. The product backlog is just a list of components, so all the different activities that we need to do. And then from all that list, we need to prioritize, and we need to have a business representative in our team that can help us set the right priorities. So we will have a list, a prioritized list on what is more important than the other things. And at the beginning of the sprint, we will do some planning. So we can pick a defined number of tasks or activities that have been defined on the backlog. And then we will bring them into sprint backlog. And here is where all the cycle happens, right? The discovery, the planning, the build, and the review. So all happening here. And then we jump into the sprint review with our customers, our executives, or our clients. We receive the feedback, so that can give us incremental work. And we have a retrospective on the team or within the team that can help us improve. So the idea of the retrospective is to have that review with our teams, where we can analyze what went well, what didn't go well, and if there is any room for improvement, that we can take action. And that will help us get a little bit better each of the time. So if our team can be 1% better each of the days, at the end of the year, it's going to be a significant improvement in how the team will be working, the cohesion between the team, how teams are interacting, or how team members are interacting among themselves. So it makes a lot of difference. This is the game of Agile. So we have a product backlog, which is important. It's a list of all the different requirements, and we can spend a full session on how can I make sure that I'm building the right thing. So that's something that is it's often a very good question. How do we do a good sprint planning? How do we get more into this cycle and start talking about DevOps and some other things? But please keep in mind that for any industry, for any business that you may be, regardless if it is IT or not, you will have a list of activities that you want to accomplish. So you have to prioritize those. You can get into this specific time box that will allow you to complete something and deliver something at the end of that specific time box. And you can review that very often with your customers or stakeholders. That cycle repeats over and over. And there is where the Agile value is unleashed. Cool. So I mentioned that Agile focus a lot on value, but what is value, or value to whom? And this is where I believe that it's important to say, okay, it depends. It can be stakeholders, it can be users, internal, external, it can be customers, suppliers, or it can be, something completely different, or it will mean something completely different. So the value generation has many phases, and it can be money, of course. It can be appreciation, it can be commitment, it can be speed, it can be market share, it can be many, many things. So what is important for us is that when we build the backlog, when we build that list of activities, that we always consider what is the value that this piece of work is going to have for my customer, for my user, for my company, etc. So keep that always in mind, and that will ensure that you will deliver a small piece of value each of the sprints. Now, you may hear about something that is called MVP. And the MVP is called the minimum viable product. And the reason I will bring this into the equation is because, yeah, it sounds good. It sounds cool. Yeah, Eric talked about it, right? And it's something that it will be very important to apply. But what is the impact? So I'm going to show you a little bit of a different perspective on how an MVP can help. So let's imagine that I'm gonna open a boba tea store, and I say boba tea because I love boba tea. So bear with me, guys. So I'm gonna open a store, and it is projected that I will deliver, or I will start selling in 9 months. So that means that I have a place, and I will be, working on the place, maybe working on the brand, building well, some stuff. Maybe I will have some seats, some tables, etc. So I have a 9 months project. So after I finish this, I need to start working on the market. So let's say that after 3 months, I start receiving 300K. 3 months after, I receive another 300. 3 months after, I receive another 300, and so on. So that is the value I receive in return after I created my project, which is opening my boba tea store. But what if, instead of having this 9-month project, I start breaking it down into smaller pieces of work? So instead of having like one big grand opening that can be after everything is perfect, or everything is at a certain degree to my expectation, I start thinking, okay, so I have the space. What if my first iteration, my first MVP is have the right equipment, have the right ingredients or the right vendors, and I start selling for pickup or to go. So that is a possibility. I don't need the physical space. I don't need to have everything set up. I can start working with a website, having some social media and so on. That's something I can have in the first 3 months. Then in the next 3 months, I can continue doing something that adds value to that. So maybe the next 3 months, I start working on standalone tables that people can start visiting. And maybe I don't have chairs yet, but people can stay in my place, and they can start talking. We have an open space. I create this networking opportunity, and so on. So we continue building on that. And what if I tell you that after the first idea, so we deliver the first MVP, after the first 3 months, I start receiving 150K. So yeah, it's not the 300 that we were seeking after the delivery of the project, but we start creating some brand, we start creating some value around my store, and I have some revenue back as well. I deliver the second MVP after 6 months, and I receive another 300. So now I have this 450. So how about 400 and 450K extra? Would you be against that? Or will that be this something that you will be interested in? And I read you in the chat.
Depends on what are we getting returned from. We're going to spend another 450,000. Ouch! What's our budget?
Well, your budget originally is what you committed for your. I'm not talking about expense. I'm talking about revenue. So.
Oh, revenue. I see.
Exactly.
Got it.
So you receive 300K at the.
Oh yeah, 450K. Why not?
Exactly. So if you start early and you break your project originally and start building on top of that and start receiving some money on that, why not, right? So that is the beauty of the MVP. So start early, you receive feedback, you get like the right communication. Hey, do you like my brand? Hey, do you like the colors? Hey, what about the suppliers? Or am I using the right people? You start receiving feedback from real customers, and you don't need to wait for 9 months to start getting or capturing that feedback. So that is the value of the MVP. Another example. So let's imagine that I am a painter, and let's say I work in Central Park. Oh, no, let me take that back. I work in Boston Common, and my job is to paint portraits. So this is my customer, and he came to me and said, you know what, I want this portrait. To me, to get into my customer's mind, well, you know that is something that is very difficult. So what I need to do is I need to build an MVP, or I need to start small and then start increasing the value or aggregate the value on top of what I'm building. So let's think that I will have 5 iterations. Let's say that each iteration is going to be 1 week. So I have 5 weeks to deliver my painting. and my first MVP is this one. So I start with this idea. I cannot see what's going on here, right? So I just see a little bit of the front. That may be good. It will okay. I see a little bit of the color on the back, but I don't know how the landscape is going to be. I don't know if the model is looking like the way I want. I don't know if the hands are going to be in the right position. So there is a lot that we can that we don't know. So if I'm a customer and I see this as a first deliverable and I say this MVP, there is not much feedback that my customer can give me. We go to the second sprint, second week, and I see this, and then say, well, okay, well, that helps me to understand the face, but I still cannot provide any input on the landscape, on the color. What about the clothes? So I don't have any input on the clothes for the girl, etc. So it is not helping me to understand the MVP concept. So what is the value? What is the final outcome that we are pursuing? The same with the iteration 3, iteration 4. It is until the iteration 5 that I can see the full picture, and I can give, you know what? I don't like the shoulder, or I think that it is too bright on the left shoulder, and can you correct that? So we can have surprises. Let me give another example of a wrong MVP. So iteration number 1, let's say that I paint the face and I show it to my customer. My customer can say, yeah, that's good. I mean, I like the face, but what about the arms? Hey, what about the landscape? What about the clothes? What about the position? Is this person standing? Is this person seated? What about this person? So I cannot get like additional feedback other than, hey, it's a pretty face. Cool. Let's go to the second iteration. So I get the face and I get the hands. That's nice. But I as a customer, I cannot get like more information about the landscape and so on. Let's go to the third one, the fourth one, and it is until the fifth one that I can see the landscape, right? So if I don't like the landscape, if I don't like the way that she's sitting, it will take a couple of weeks to realize, and that is not a good MVP. So now let's use a good example of a good MVP. A good MVP can include, okay, let's do a sketch, right? And over this sketch, I can give my opinion. I can tell, you know what, I don't like the hand touching the mouth. Hey, what about we modify the mountains on the back and we do something with that? Next sprint or next iteration. Hey, is this what you're looking for? Oh, I like it. Okay, I would like to see the color. Next, perfect. Let's work on the color. So next iteration, I work on the color and I present this. And the customer can say, you know what, I don't like, it's too bright. I don't know. I think that we need to be a little bit darker. We need to, work on the fine tuning, blah, blah. Perfect. Let's go to the next iteration. Then I present something darker. And that can be like the base and say, okay, that's great. So I would like to see, the fine tuning. Perfect. Week number 5, we have a deliverable that matches what my customer was asking. And that is how we can build an MVP. Another way to see this is through a minimum delightful experience. So when we build MVPs, sometimes we focus on the functional value that is at the bottom of the pyramid. So we focus on, hey, I'm delivering something that can be functional. It may not be cool. It may not be something that my customer will say, wow, but at least it's functional, right? At least my customer can give me feedback. Okay, that's valid. But what if instead of that, you build a product that can be a little bit functional, a little bit reliable, and a little bit usable, and a little bit delightful. So you can give them a little bit more information on how is your product, how is your service, what you are trying to accomplish to the MVP on a better way. And if you are a foodie like me, one example I can say is, well, if you like pizza, well, don't just give them the crust. So give them something that can be a little bit more meaningful, so they can, our customers, our users can talk about, hey, I like the cheese, I don't like the cheese. Hey, what if you put this ingredient on top? I like the sauce, etc. So that we can receive that feedback from our customers. One example on this in the real world is I presented a webinar. Actually, it was a series of webinars about Agile and change management for a business school in Valencia, in Spain. And those webinars, I captured the feedback that I hear from the participants. And with the time, that became a webinar that was 30 minutes long that became a 3 hours course, and then that became an 8 hours course that I have with this business school in Spain. So that is a way that you can start small, deliver something, present it, capture the feedback, and keep iterating on that. All right, so cool. We understand that Agile goes in cycles, that we need to be very specific on the sprints or the iterations, that we have all the full cycle within the sprint, that we need to prioritize the backlog. That's all. Everything sounds very nice, but what if we're wrong? How can we prevent that we're in the wrong direction? So we talked at the beginning that speed was important, but if we are going to the right direction, well, does it matter? Yes, it matters a lot. So the best approach or the best advice I can give on this is talk to your customers as often as possible. So by doing that, you can make sure that you are on the right direction, and you don't need to wait until the end of the projects to receive that feedback that can set you into a different direction or pivot from the original thoughts. So on the cycle again, so we have a backlog. There is a list of activities that I'm interested in completing. From this list, I have a limited capacity, so I'm just going to plan a small number of it. I will bring them to my sprint, which is my time box that I said 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I will work on this iteration process. I will show that value or that small piece of value to my customers, capture the feedback, understand what I can improve, and keep moving with the cycle. That is the spirit of Agile. Is Agile for everybody? That is a great question. And when I was studying about this, well, there are like many areas or opportunities. Of course, everything started with software, no? with the world of software creation development. But if you remember at the beginning, we talk about values, we talk about practices, we talk about principles. And understanding those principles at the core can be implemented anywhere. It can be implemented in a restaurant, it can be implemented on a school, it can be implemented anywhere in our personal lives as well. So this example that I'm showing right now, it is a restaurant called Ricardo's, and it is in London. And they implemented Agile. And what they did is they started having more transparency around the metrics, more transparency about the shifts, understanding what was going on. And if you work on a restaurant, you may agree with me that the rotation on the personnel, rotation on the people is very high on a restaurant. So how can you retain all the talent? How can you keep the same, keep all the people together and so on? Well, what they did is they implemented, well, unlimited vacation, for example. They didn't care, let's say that if you take 1 day, 1 week, whatever, as long as you have someone to cover for you. And with that said, that foster the training across all the people, right? So if I am a bartender and I'm covering for the person who is in the kitchen, it is my best interest to learn what this person is doing so I can cover for him. It will be a little bit more extra money for me, and it will be a vacation for this person. So that will be great. So how about, well, how about I eliminate all the management on the restaurant and I treat everyone as equal? So that the morale of the team, the morale of the person that was working on the restaurant increase by having all these measures. And as a result of this, well, they had a 15% reduction on shifts, on necessary shifts. They had a 25% profit distributed by the employees. So at the end, the owner shared the profit with the people, and you have people happy. You have your customers happy. Satisfaction was increased as well, and they start tracking some metrics that are a little bit different than the traditional ones in a restaurant. So it's just one example on how Agile can be implemented or outside of IT or any other industry. All right, show me something. Show me something cool, right? So it is. I would say that it sucks when someone comes to you and say, "Hey, I would like to introduce this idea, or I would like to talk about this." And yeah, it sounds good, it sounds nice, but ultimately, how can we land this? And Agile, we can talk all day about this, and I can go deep on every ceremony. I can give advice on best practices on this or best practice on that. the intention for today is to scratch a little bit on the surface and make you curious about everything that is around Agile. And we can do a different session. We can do a deep dive if you're interested in the future about something specific or something more meaningful about your companies and so on. But the idea here is that Agile it's a very, very broad idea. It's a very broad mindset and methodology and framework that can be used anywhere. And I try to share a little bit of why or how does that work? How does that work in incremental pieces of value? So you can realize and I can say, you know what, I can apply that in what I'm doing. I think that what you're sharing is interesting on this piece. I would like to try, and I always try to provide like three, or I would like to end with three tips. So you can use Agile right away, or use a little bit of the methodology, or use a little bit of the concept that we saw on this presentation. And the first one, it is about something called the social contract. And the social contract is a contract that it is established by your team, and your team will define what is important for team, will define what if we break something that is important on the team, and can help us to set the right expectations in terms of what are we going to do if we face this situation. Where is this team going to effort or put the efforts or the energies in general? And here is it is a contract. At the end, if you break the contract, you are subject to some consequences, right? So it is putting everything in written. The team has to agree with everything that is in there. Of course, when you are talking about creating it, everything is negotiable. If the team is not feeling comfortable, if a team member is not feeling comfortable about something, that is the opportunity to negotiate and talk about it and get an agreement. But ultimately, this social contract is something that will be the base guide, or the baseline, or your guidance on how the team is going to behave towards meetings, towards communication, towards implementation of a specific software, or implementation of Agile or any other methodology. So that's something that I highly recommend to implement with your teams. The second piece, or the second component you will see is it's a character from Sesame Street, and you will say, why on earth is that guy in there? So let me ask you this. Have you ever been on a meeting that is so boring? Or have you ever been on a meeting where there's a guy who hijacks the meeting and start talking and talking and talking, and it's a never-ending story, and the purpose of the meeting was one, and suddenly you find yourself talking about the weather, or you find yourself out talking about I don't know, this other person pets or whatever. Have you been on that situation? Well, Elmo is, and I see the chat, so yeah. So Elmo is a tool that we can use, because Elmo means enough, let's move on. And it is a polite way to say, hey guys, that's very cool what you're saying. It's I think that, yeah, well, talking about the weather is nice, talking about your pets is nice, but we are here with a purpose, and we are not accomplishing that purpose. So let's stop what we're doing. Let's go back to the topic. And what I did with the teams, or what I like to do with the teams, I give them an Elmo card. And that's something that if anyone starts derailing the conversation, it doesn't matter if it's an executive, it doesn't matter if it is my boss, if it is about my boss's boss, etc. We bring Elmo to the equation, so we can say, hey, it's a polite way to say, you know what, let's go back to the topic. And I'm sure that that's something that you can find interesting. So recommendation there, try it on. Next recommendation, next tip is about limiting the working process. And this is very important, because we try to do two different things in general. One is we try to absorb as much as work as possible. And when we have a lot of work in the middle, in process, we start feeling, or we start having conflicting activities. And sometimes you start working on something, you forget about it for weeks, then you come back and then say, oh, where is this? Oh, it's still in process. So at the end, when you have many activities in process, it is very difficult that you have outcomes. So the results at the end are very poor. So that is the first thing. And you can compare it yourself. So how good are you at multitasking? So when someone asks you to do two things at the same time, you can pay attention to one, but then if someone calls your name, you say, what's going on here? Or, hey, could you please repeat? Could you please say that again? Hey, I was multitasking. I'm sure that you have here comments like this in your companies. So multitasking is the same effect that we have as the working process. So when you create this backlog list, when you create this backlog sequence, it is very important that you act as a guardian of how many work we can have in process. So you can see that the funnel here is being prioritized, and instead of having everything, trying to accomplish everything at the same time, we work little by little on things, but we follow a process, and we make sure that we start something and that we finish something. And you would say, okay, but how about the deliverables? Yeah, I agree. If you compare the deliverables in the short term, we will be delivering less, but we will be delivering more often. And that is the difference. So when we talk about agile cadences, and this is very similar to lean manufacturing principles, you will see similar criteria in here. So all of these practices are talking about what we can do as a team and how important is to limit the working process. And the final advice I have for today, it is called the wall of work. So the wall of work, it is this visualization board where you can put what is my backlog on the sprint, what is in process, and what is done. By doing this, you can do this in your wall, you can do this in a whiteboard, you can do it electronically, but the idea is that you have the right visualization tool. So if you have a stakeholder, if you have your boss coming to you, if you have someone who is interested on having an outcome, understanding where you are on a specific activity, they can look at the board. And automatically you can understand what is the process, where is this person right now, and if you need to push a little bit, or if that situation is going well, is going on time according to your expectations. And one example I got from here, well, actually two examples. One is a person in a school, a kid on a school, and how they implemented this wall of work in their school. And another example is a parent that implemented this with their kids and start giving some treats in terms of, hey, can I have my tablet? Perfect, but you need to complete this learning. So you can negotiate, and you can foster that relationship with kids, and you can learn where they are right now for the deliverables that you commit with them. So you talk with them, you agree on something, you agree that this sprint or these 2 weeks or this week, we're gonna do ABC, and they can move very easily the cards, and then you can check where they are. If there is something that, hey, I was expecting that you will be doing this faster, you can talk to them, and that's something that you can see right away where they are. And the same applies to companies. So if you have a management system, if you have stakeholders looking for your work and so on, having this transparent communication helps a lot. So recommendation here, implement a wall of work where you can populate well all the backlog issues, all the tasks or activities that you have for the sprint, and you can have this idea of what is in process and what is done. And with that said, well, I would like to thank the Power MBA for allowing me to be being here today with you. I love social media, so I try to stay connected on LinkedIn and Twitter. So please, if you like something from this presentation, share that with everybody, share that with me on social media, and I will be more than happy to continue the conversation. If there is anything that you would like to do a deep dive on based on the surface, on the high level view that I did today on Agile, please don't hesitate to do that and let me know. And with that, Anita, I pass it to you. I don't know if there's any comments or questions.
Well, I actually have a question. So my question is, I don't know if I can express it correctly, but my question is, what is the difference, or how do you know if that approach to Agile is not like, let's say, I'm gonna call it, simply, that it's not a pain in the butt, in a sense that, like you structuring something which, from my perspective, not being a software person, seems like a logical work, logical chain of events that's supposed to be happening, versus, for example, that illustration that you used at the, end slide when the kid is placing some words on the board. you know, that's for me like pain in the butt, because you did your learning process and now the teacher asks you to put it on the chart, you know, what you learn. So like, you know, when this is real and when this is fake, that's my question.
Well, remember, one of the values on the agile world is trust. So you need to trust and foster that in your community. You need to foster that with your teams. Try to also explain what is the benefit of being loyal, being true to what we are doing here, and what happens if you lie. No, if you have let's put exercising as an example. If you say that you exercised yesterday and you didn't, next day you do the same, next day you do the same. At the end of the week, you as an instructor, you can notice when someone is faking, right? So it is in your best interest that you complete your activities, and it's in the best team interest, because at the end we are all going towards the same place. We are all delivering value, and this is what it has to be very clear to the team members, to the agile teams or the organization, so they can speak with the truth. Now, how do you identify if this is just lipstick, or this is just yes, I'm saying and I'm agile and this is not working? That's a great question. So the best answer I can give you is focus on what you're trying to accomplish. So if you're not achieving the value that you're forecasting to deliver at the end of each of the sprints, then there's something wrong in there. It can be that the team is not working properly. It can be that the tools maybe not be the right ones. It may be something different. So all this kind of situation needs to be addressed on the retrospective. So you can talk with the team and say, hey guys, we promised our clients that we're going to deliver this in this sprint, and we didn't. So what's going on? Shoot, tell me ideas. What happened? And then it will be the team telling you, you know what, I was lazy. Yeah, I agree. Or you know what, I said that I will be doing this, but well, you know that I got sick, and well, it was difficult for me to catch up. The team will tell you, and that is something that I can recommend to always keep open with the team. So focus very well on what value you want to deliver and track the value. And if you are not achieving that, talk to the people, talk to your people, and always also talk to your stakeholders.
Yeah, what I mean is more, you know, like people faking a process, you know, like they see the board with a lot of, you know, stick up notes, you know, that you're moving around because this is to do, this is being done right now, and this is already completed. And then they faking the process, you know, like a very simple example, you know, my 6 years old at school, and they doing the weather calendar. They making some graphs, they filling up the colors, but nobody ever get to the point of analyzing it. Why are we doing it, and what's the final outcome, you know? So we like faking the process, but then it's never come to that point of analysis and making use of it. And I think that happens in a lot of organizations, in a sense, you know, not necessarily software related, that we are faking the process. We checking off these deliverables, we checking off that we did something, but it has like no meaning.
Right. So a couple things. One, when you create the backlog, when you create those activities, make sure that you are capturing something valuable. If you are creating something that, yeah, we need to do this, but it doesn't add value, I will question why you're doing it. Okay. So people is smart. At the end, they will question you. If you know, my boss assigned me, or my mom assigned me this, but I don't see the value, I don't see the purpose of this, they can fake it. They can pretend. Yeah. So if you show them the value up front, they can understand why this is important. Number two, if you put the card from one place to another and you fake it, or you don't deliver, you lie, someone is going to notice, someone in the process. And when you have the revision with your customers at the end, they can easily ask about it. So where is this piece? And there is no way, well, I see that it is deliverable. Hey, I don't know who's the person, who is assigned to this person. Okay, hey, can you please speak about it? I didn't deliver. It's gonna be bad on him.
Yeah, it seems like this is a huge culture, not just, you know, not just a process, but the huge mindset that needs to be implemented.
Exactly. And it works when everything starts getting like the right mindset, the right understanding on why we're doing this. It is not because my boss wants it. It is not because it is the sexiest thing that is out there. It is not because, oh, the startups are doing agile, we need to implement that. If you implement a stand-up and you get your meetings, 15 minutes meetings every day, that's cool, but that is not agile. At the end, you need to have all the combination of factors. You need to understand the values. You need to understand what is what you're seeking, and ultimately try to get closer to your customers, so you don't make that mistake of delivering something that no one is going to use.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. I think I like the fact of agile is fail fast, right? But I think to your point, I've always added and bring value fast. And I think that's what changes the mindset, because if people don't do it and there's not this quick sort of feedback or support or reinforcement, it doesn't stick. The question I have is, so I came from a hardware semiconductor company, and we tried to implement this kind of concept of agile for a hardware product, right? We had a 3 to 4 year development cycle, and I think it was more, they tried to put Jira and Confluence into it, or Jira to do this stuff, and I just didn't see it, right? I mean, it's obviously not as agile, and it doesn't mean you can't, but what are you seeing on that landscape? Because I know there's all these hybrids now of Kanban, agile, this and that kind of thing. Have you ever seen agile-ish applied to a hardware product development that was successful?
Wow, that's a very good question. So in my experience, you have to do whatever that makes sense. So during the conversation I had today, I didn't talk about Scrum, or I didn't talk about XP, which are like the specific practices or the specific methodologies. I talk about Agile as a concept, as a mindset, and that can be embraced by different organizations. Intel can be a good company to talk about that. And it can be on the executive dimension, it can be on the operational as well. When they start working on the chip boom, when the dot-com bubble start going down, there were companies that were falling down, like Seagate, or where's this other that is now doing hard drives? I don't remember what, but they have like the same technology, but Intel switch or pivot that into what the company is right now. That is one example on having the vision, and then how do you translate that? It is very similar with lean manufacture, for example, so the work in sales and how the Toyota management process. So at the end, it's a combination of factors. The essence is very similar. So if you're true to that essence, I believe that generating value, maybe less, but more often, is something that your customers will appreciate.
There is a question in the chat, Pepe, from Luis.
Sure. Sometimes I find the value in one area gets exaggerated to cover for issues. Yes. Okay. Well, let's talk about exaggerating the benefits. We will face this all the time, right? And we all are in the market. We all are professionals and want to say, hey, I'm here. I want the next promotion. I want to be the coolest person with my customers. There are like different motivations on which people can start, exaggerating or overselling something. So the best thing here that you can do is keep yourself honest to the feedback that you receive from your customers. So let's say that if in your team or you're managing 2 or 3 teams that are agile, and the feedback from your customer is, hey, this is not working, but your team is telling you, you know what, we delivered the best product ever, and it is super automated, it is super nice, we receive very good feedback. Cool, but the feedback I'm receiving from the customer directly is not like that. So at the end, it's going to be looking bad. So the truth is always rising. So my point here is that try to stay true on what you're doing. Try to be honest with your customers, and try to be honest with yourself, because at the end, if you're not delivering the value that you're supposed to be bringing, someone is going to suffer it. It's going to be your company, it's going to be your product, it's going to be, your market, your customers, and ultimately we're here to provide a value. So if people do not see the value on what I'm doing, they will cut me out.
Hey, that's an interesting point. So I know you didn't get into like you said, Scrum and some of the other specifics, but the Google Sprint looks like a very hands-on, actual, application of the agile concept, right? What are your ideas around that? What are your feelings around? Did they take it to the place they needed? Was it just because it's Google, or what are your ideas in that sense?
So I will go back to the point I made. So you have to do whatever that makes sense. So Google has a very interesting culture, and that allowed them to try different stuff and try things that can work. And by the way, they are also good, a good idea or good example of how this can be implemented on so many departments and so many dimensions, right? Because they have different products. They have the Google Docs suite, the navigation bars, the browser searches. So they have like a very big spectrum of products. That works for them, and I respect that. To me personally, it's a little bit too much. It's a little bit too crazy in terms of, hey, you need to implement this in this time, or you need to have a 1 week sprint. You need to have like a very intense planning so you can just execute. To me, it's a little bit intense. That works, so I don't criticize that. That works for them, and that's fantastic. To me, the approach is a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more focused on the value. And when you work with different teams and you try to expand or scale these to startups, to well-defined companies and so on, at the end, what matters is the outcome.
Got it. So you're saying it was based more on the company culture, and obviously Google's company culture is a little bit an anomaly to most. One last question: stand-up meetings. This really got integrated from the whole agile sprints and all that kind of thing. I've seen that work. I've seen that not work for a long run. What are your thoughts?
Well, it depends on who's driving, right? If you need to call Elmo all the time, it means that you're accomplishing little, right? So I see the value on having these frequent meetings. It is up to the team to decide, hey, do we want this daily? Or do we want this any other day, every other day? Or do we want this 3 times a week? Or what is the cadence that we want? But I find myself very valuable, and this is both on hardware and software and all different companies, that you have that opportunity to calibrate with everyone in your team and say, hey, this is the goal, where we are towards that goal. Are we doing fine? No problem. Let's go. Bye. Hey, I have a problem. What is the problem? Oh, who can help me? Okay, let's take it offline and let's resolve it. So that is I would say that the essence is very positive. The practice is where it is a little bit a challenge, because we don't, well, sometimes we have good Scrum Masters, good iteration managers, sometimes we don't. And that can influence a lot on the outcome of those sessions. The essence is very positive. I can recommend that. It also depends on the people and how the team members understand Agile, so they can make that person accountable for how boring, for how useless, or how meaningless that meeting is.
Awesome. Well, great talk, man. This was very interesting. Thank you so much for your time and giving this to us. Yeah.
All right, Anita, I see one more question.
Yeah, one more question.
Yeah. Go ahead. You tell me your question.
Well, I'm just curious about how does it get started? So let's say you have a project and how do you break it into those little, deliverables? Because is that the team doing like a brainstorming, or is that like a big top person that structures it and then, gives the little projects away, or how is this implemented?
Wow, that's a fantastic question. And I don't have an easy way to say it, because it is a combination of different factors. So one, you need to get the buy-in from the top leadership. It's very important that you have the buy-in from the executives. If they are not convinced that implementing this kind of practices is going to move the needle, is going to make a difference, it's going to be very difficult. If the team is convinced, is implementing, but they don't have the support from the management, it's going to be very difficult. So it goes both ways. Both ways need to be on board. How do you start it? I would say start with education. Understand what are the practices. Understand what fits your culture. What is what fits your company. Make a hybrid. and it may be not like this perfect combination, or it will be not like this perfect methodology, but take the best for you and use what is best for you and start little by little. No, Agile is that spirit of starting small, as accelerating, and remember, speed is important. So you start small and start building on top. Start with one practice. Start defining the scrum, defining the sprints. Start making that dynamic of creating a list of activities. How many of those I can deliver in a sprint? Make that happen. And at the beginning, maybe you plan to accomplish 10 things and you will cover 3. Fine, let's go to the next sprint. From the same, maybe you plan 6 now and you deliver 3. Okay, we are consistent. So next time I will plan 3. Right? So you get improving little by little. And that is how you get this moving forward.
Okay, or somebody else I work with. You have one more question. Okay,
I see that it's about certifications. So if you work with projects, it is going to be very similar. So you need to get like the right all the project. Let's say that all the different activities that you know about your project. So if you are certifying someone, or if you're going to be certified, well, that's two different use cases. But if let's say that you're a certification house, and you are going to certify Anita's Tango store, and what I will do is I will say all the activities, so all the methodologies and all the manuals, right? Like the right practice. I don't remember, like the SOPs and stuff. You have like this. You understand what you need to look. What is the timing? What are the different activities that you need to evaluate, and your methodology about it. So what you can do is you can create your own list, and then you define the timeline, define the scrum, and then on the scrum you will say, okay, so in this sprint we're going to cover 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is what you focus. And if there is something that you need to validate at the end, like the revision changes or something, that's something that you need to do at the end. You don't care about that at the moment. You just focus on delivering the value of that. And at the end of those 2 weeks or 1 week, or depending on what your team decides, you will have a deliverable that you can share with Anita. You say, Anita, I evaluate this piece and I did all this evaluation. This is the result. Please let me know your feedback. And then say, oh, you know what? I agree with what you said. Or you know what? You didn't consider this. And then you can capture that feedback into your process.
Okay, Pepe, I think we have to end. We're 10 minutes over, sorry.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And at the end, if you have any questions, please follow me on social media. And if you want something like doing a deep dive, I will be more than open to continue the conversation. And well, thank you again to the Power MBA for opening the space.